This is the M20 Greyhound armoured car kit in 15mm from Normandy Miniatures. Normandy Miniatures are a brand new manufacturer, and this kit is one of their first releases in plastic. The M8 armoured car was widely used by Allied forces as a reconnaissance platform. A wheeled vehicle, the M8 mounted a 37mm gun in the turret, along with a 50 caliber and 30 caliber machine guns. This kit can also build the M20 armoured car, a turretless command version. My review copies didn't come in a box, so let's get straight to the plastic. The box set contains 5 of these sprues of light grey plastic. This styrene is the same as the company's Jagdpanzer 4 kit, a little harder and shinier than standard kit styrene. It works okay, just be aware that this is a bit different to cut and sand than you might be used to. The plastic also seems to be a bit slower to bond completely, so parts like the hull might need clamping until the glue is fully dry. Parts are generally well formed with only some minor flash in places. This is easily cleaned up. There is some good detail, but it seems a bit soft and rounded. Some parts, like the moulded on tools, are a bit too subtle and would be better in higher relief. They blend into the surface a bit. If you compare this to the stronger and sharper detail we're used to from other plastic kits, it could do with being a bit more prominent. The wheels are 6 separate parts with a post on the back that glues into half-circle depressions in the lower hull. This looks like it would be fiddly, but getting the parts on and aligned during assembly proved easier than I expected. It might be simpler if the wheels for each side were moulded as a single piece like the Battlefront BTR-60s, but this works okay. The prominent fender parts are separate pieces. This is a nice touch. It will be more work to glue them on, but some or all of them were regularly lost or dismounted in service. Having these as separate pieces makes variations easy to model. There are large mating surfaces on these parts that give a solid fit and make them easy to glue. There are 3 crew figures supplied. These are okay, but they seem a bit spindly. In fact, the whole kit feels a little small. I'm guessing the sculpts are true 15mm, a bit like the Plastic Soldier Company kits. This can make them seem a bit small when compared against Battlefront's more heroic, slightly overscale figures and vehicles. The supplied figures are standing or seated. Given the driver's hatches can be modelled open, it's a shame there's no driver supplied. You could butcher one of the other figures for this. They are sculpted firing weapons, but you could make it work. The figures are full height, so you'd also need to dismember them to mount them in the M8 turret, which has a solid floor. The 37mm gun and mantlet are a single piece. This protrudes well up out of the sprue, just asking to be bent or broken. It would be better if this was moulded along the sprue rather than at right angles to it. But while I'm highlighting some issues here, there isn't really anything wrong with this kit. The parts will go together to make a decent plastic kit. Let's build one and see how it comes out. The instructions are a single sheet showing the assembly for the 2 different vehicles. I'm building the M8 armoured car. Construction starts with the hull. Snip the lower hull piece from the sprue and then the upper hull piece. These have guide parts front and rear to aid alignment. Run some glue along the lower hull mating surfaces and press them together. These join well, and if you push them together firmly you'll get a gap-free fit. This shiny styrene does take some time to bond, so I suggest you clamp the hull pieces together to maintain pressure. This is important if you don't want to be filling gaps later. Put these parts aside and we'll work on the turret while it bonds. Snip the upper and lower turret pieces from the sprue. Then you can glue them together. There's no guide pins or other aids for alignment here. You just need to nudge the pieces around until they line up. Make sure you mount the lower part the right way up. You should still be able to see the hole for the turret mounting peg on the bottom of the assembled turret. Next, you can cut the gun and mantlet piece off and glue it onto the turret. There's a mounting pin on the back of the mantlet that fits into a hole on the turret front. Push this firmly into place and check the alignment. Unfortunately, the gun barrel is a bit droopy. The way it's engineered onto the sprue makes it susceptible to bending like this. Now the hull is dry, we can move on to the wheels. Snip them off and clean them up. The posts on the back of the wheels fit into recesses in the lower hull. Some posts have a little flash that needs to be sanded back to fit them in flush to the hull. Because the wheels butt right up to the hull, you can glue them here too, meaning the alignment and positioning is pretty good. Continue on with all 6 wheels. I'm building the turreted M8 version, so this turret plate fits on over the fighting compartment. It has a shaped lip underneath that matches the opening, making sure it only fits in one way. A prominent feature of the M8 family was the fenders over the wheels. Cut and trim these parts. These large fenders go on the back. There's a nice wide lip here which fits up against the hull and makes for a good glue bond. The front fenders are smaller but also have some good contact surfaces for glue. There are also some stowage boxes that go between the fenders, but these are optional. I've left them off this one. Hull detailing includes these headlight covers. The fit is tight, so you might need to sand these to fit them. Then you can fit the front driver's compartment hatches. These are 2 parts each and can be modelled open or closed. The fit is tight, and again parts may need some sanding to fit in satisfactorily. Here's the finished kit. It went together okay. There were some issues with parts with close tolerances like the driver's hatches and the turret peg. These needed some sanding to get the fit right. While it looks okay, there's just something about the overall shape and proportions that doesn't seem to quite work. I'm not sure what it is. Some angles just look wrong and the turret seems to be a bit large. You can see there are 2 depressions with holes on the rear deck. It looks like there's something missing here. These appear to be the places for the radio antenna mounts, but having open holes in the mould here just makes the kit look unfinished. But it is one of the first injection moulded kits from a new manufacturer, an impressive achievement in itself. As far as I know, it's also the only M8 M20 kit in plastic in 15mm. Let's look at some history. While design work on what would become the M8 armoured car began in 1941, the vehicle didn't enter serial production until 1943. Originally designed as a tank destroyer mounting the 37mm gun on a truck chassis, the T-22 armoured car was overtaken by events. It was clear that the 37mm gun was no longer adequate for anti-tank work, so the design was switched to the reconnaissance role. A design from the Ford Motor Company, the M8 was a 6x4 wheeled vehicle. Its primary armament was the 37mm gun, with a coaxial 30 caliber machine gun and a 50 caliber AA machine gun. These were all mounted in the open-top turret. Armour protection was thin, only proof against small arms. Crews often added sandbag armour on the floor to increase protection against landmines. The crew consisted of driver, radio operator, gunner and commander. The commander acted as loader for the main gun. Powered by a gasoline engine, the M8 had good speed on the road but had limited off-road performance. The engine was quiet, which aided the reconnaissance role. The M8 first saw action in Sicily in 1943, serving in Italy, Europe and the Pacific. It was not a real success. Off-road mobility was limited, a significant liability in a scout vehicle. By 1945, the 37mm gun was no longer really effective. Work was started to develop a successor, but interest in this project waned as the war ended. It was widely exported to US allies, including Britain and France. After the war, M8s were supplied to many nations under the US Military Assistance Program. So that's the M8 armoured car in 15mm from Normandy Miniatures. There are some weaknesses in this kit, but it is one of the first plastic injection mould kits from a brand new manufacturer. This makes it an impressive achievement. Weaknesses are some possible shape and proportion issues, a slightly small true 15mm sculpt and some light surface detail that's a bit rounded and soft. The glossy styrene that's a bit harder to cut and glue and needs clamping until dry is a drawback. Some parts tolerances like the hatches are tight, but nothing a bit of sanding didn't easily sort out. The gun ring on the turret seems a bit overscale. I would probably leave it off subsequent builds of this kit. It was often dismounted in service with the 50 cal mounted on a post on the turret. On the plus side, the separate wheels didn't prove to be an issue. It went together okay, and it's the only injection moulded M8 M20 kit in plastic that I know of. So I am a bit less happy with the outcome of this kit than Normandy Miniatures' other release, the Jagdpanzer 4. But again, as a first effort in injection moulding from a new manufacturer, it is an impressive achievement. If you're looking to use M8 armoured cars in your force, these are worth a look. I expect the experience from designing these kits will make later releases even better. Normandy Miniatures have a Kickstarter for some modern French vehicles I'm keen to have a look at. Thanks to Normandy Miniatures for supplying the review copy of this kit.